Welcome to The Plain Truth, the show where we go into some of the mysteries, anomalies, and the dirty underbelly of the world around us. I'm your host, Paul, and joining us this week, we have Ole Dammegard, who is quite knowledgeable about, I guess what you would call is our Operation Gladio world. He's been looking into this for a long time.
You could call it that, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of what you could call it, or Operation 40, right? So, Ole, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me on. It's a real honor.
Well, I appreciate it. Why don't you tell our listeners about your website and just a brief intro before we get into today's theme?
Well, I've been doing everything I can to expose the truth as I see it for the last 30 years of my life. And I've focused mainly on top political assassinations, so-called terror acts, and false flag operations. And what has happened over the years is that many of these events that I thought were totally separated, that they were not connected in any way, I found instead them, when you dig deep enough, it leads me back to the same small group of people, the same so-called power elite that is behind the so-called New World Order. I get to that group again and again and again and again. And my website is lightonconspiracies.com, lightonconspiracies.com, because that is exactly what I'm trying to do, spread light on these conspiracies, go into the darkest of the darkest corners and aim the light at them, totally fearless, aiming the spotlight right at them in a totally non-violent way, in an effort to, by exposing the truth, help to transform this world into a much more beautiful place than it is at the moment. And
well, Ole, thanks for your work on this. I mean, they do say that sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? And we
That's
certainly
a beautiful way of putting it.
We do definitely need to get rid of some of the slime in high places. Well, Ole, recently you went to Norway, right? Or to talk about the anniversary there of the shooting, the famous shooting. Why don't you tell our listeners a bit about that?
I live in Spain since some 15 years because two of my friends were murdered that was involved in helping to solve the mystery around the assassination of the Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme. And I was threatened as well. So I moved to Spain and we left everything, moved here. And then I've tried to, from this base here, go wherever I can to be on location and expose the different things the way they actually happened, not the official story many times, but what actually happened. And this year, on the 22nd of July, it was the 4th anniversary of this awful mass shooting on the island Utøya, northwest of Oslo. It was also the same day where there was a massive so-called explosion in the center of Oslo, blowing out big parts of the government building and so on. So
was that a coincidence?
Absolutely not. And I would, if it's okay with you, I would very much like to go into some details, pointing out stuff in this whole thing that so people can make up their own mind.
Oh, please. This is an important event.
So first I'll give you the official story, what is said to have happened and so on. And then afterwards I'll go into different details that might show a different version. The official story is that a man, 32-year-old Norwegian guy called Anders Breivik, for some reason wanted to make a statement in the world. And he decided to, just like in Oklahoma City, fill a van, a rental van with a fertilizer bomb, and then drive and park it outside the government building in Oslo. He then left the car, walked away dressed in a police uniform with a helmet, so that the only photos that are there in the neighborhood, you cannot identify him. There's just this person in a police uniform with a helmet on. He leaves that vehicle, gets into another vehicle, a rental car, and goes north, some 40 kilometers north of Oslo, northwest of Oslo, to an island that is called Utøya. While he's driving, the so-called bomb, explodes outside the government building, and I mean, it's totally devastated. The whole area, all the windows, everything is blown out, and a massive big thing there. It's said that at least 8 people were killed there. And then from there, he drove to this island where it's out in the countryside, very, very beautiful area with fjords and islands and so on. And this Utøya is a heart-shaped island that has been used by the Social Democrat Youth Party in Norway for quite a few generations. At the time of this, they had a youth camp there, and I think there was about 500 people in the age from 14 to 18, 19 there, with some adults as well. And it is said that this Anders Breivik then came to, there's a small little ferry there that can only carry one car and some passengers. That he entered the ferry, and he had some heavy bags with him, at least one very heavy bag. He was dressed in a police uniform, and he then crossed the water. It's only 600 meters to this island. And then once on the island, he walked around, pulled out some guns, a rifle and a Glock pistol, and then just started executing people. And he was doing that for more than an hour, walking around, just totally slaughtering people. 69 young people were murdered there. And after that, when the SWAT team finally arrived to the island, he surrendered without any fighting or anything like that. He just said, "My mission is completed," and that's it. That's the official story. And here comes a different version.
So let's just get the high-level points. It was a lone nut.
It was a lone nut, the same story as always. He was crazy. He was anti-multicultural society, and he just wanted to make a statement.
So he killed a bunch of white people because he is a white lover, right? Is that? I mean, what
there's no logic in this in my world, but do you know?
You know what I'm trying to say is, if they say that he hated Muslims and so he killed Muslims, okay, at least that's inherently, internally logical.
Yeah.
But why would he go target the people on this island?
Doesn't make sense in my world. But in the film JFK, there's a man called Mr. X. He's played by Donald Sutherland, who's he was way up in the CIA. He was in Pentagon and involved in many of these false flag operations and so on. His real name was Fletcher Prouty, a man that I highly respect. And he said he became a whistleblower, and he talked a lot about different false flags and the signs and the ingredients in a false flag operation. And one of the things he said was that when there is a black op going, it is not so much what happens, but what doesn't happen. That is a sure sign of that there's something, a totally different agenda going on. And here you will see that everything just goes into absolute standstill, standby. Nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens, and then again, nothing happens, which, according to him, is a very clear sign of a black op. And I put together a list of some 30 points that I just want to go into detail about what did not work this day. So either there was an extremely unlucky day where all the technical stuff just went to dead, or we are seeing something different. Now, for instance, when this bomb exploded in central Oslo, for one thing, when you look at a normal explosion, the damages are always the biggest closest to the explosives. But here we see a totally different picture. that the damages to the buildings are actually at the top of the skyscraper. It's a very high building, like I think about 30 floors. And the damages are almost most at the top, not close to where the van is said to have been. Also, there's no pattern of an explosive. There's no crater. There was nothing like that. Instead, all the windows and in many other buildings as well surrounding this whole block were pulled out. They were not in a normal explosion. They're being pushed into the buildings. When the windows crash, you will find all the glass, broken glass on the inside. But here they were sucked out somehow. And also the whole area was filled with debris, but very odd. And when you look at it also, the photos from the very first minutes, there's absolutely no people. The whole area seems to have been shut off in both ends and evacuated. There are hardly any people inside the buildings. There's more or less zero people on the ground, on the street level. Then after a few minutes, suddenly people are starting appearing, victims and so on, and also the fire brigade. It's said that the fire brigade could not get out because all the doors to the fire station that is just almost a neighboring building to the government building, all the fire doors were blocked, so they couldn't get out. Same with the ambulances. So suddenly everything was shut up. So the only thing you see is like a few firefighters without vehicles, without anything, running around. But more or less all the photos taken at this scene is taken by the fire brigade, and it's only photos from behind and with faded faces and so on. What I'm suggesting is that we're not looking at real firefighters. We're looking at people in a staged event, just like a normal false flag nowadays, where they use crisis actors and so on. This is not the case with the island. I would say this is the case around the government building, because here many of the things and the photos of victims and so on you see does not match up, and very odd. Also, even though many ambulances are alerted, nobody arrives to the scene. So these victims, or I would say crisis actors, are being picked up by a normal bus that they've stopped in the street, they say. And then all of these are taken in this bus to the nearest hospital where they are treated and so on. But this makes it impossible for ordinary people to get in direct contact with these people while this was happening. Also, when this happened, nothing, the police center, the PC that all of these police stations were supposed to have, where the alert system, all of them were shut down. Also, the internet connection, for some reason, was shut down, so they couldn't use it. The police helicopter team that would have been crucial to get up in the air so that they could check escape routes and whatever and get a better picture. Unfortunately, these teams had been given extra vacation days to save money. So there was absolutely no one there in Oslo. And it said that they were given extra holiday to save money. But when you look at the budget for the year before, they had more than $22 million in unused funds for the year before. Okay, also in central Oslo, there was only 4 police officers on duty. 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it is said that out of these 4, 2 of them were positioned to guard the embassies of the US and Israel. I would say that is quite significant that that is exactly where they were. But if you compare to around 9/11 and other major operations, one of the things is you will see that everybody that could make a difference are sent out in all different directions, on holiday or on missions or anything, so that they are not there on location where they can make a difference. Also,
hey, I got a question about the downtown part. So that sounds pretty elaborate. Um, do you have any records of like important government documents or things being missing? In other words, is there some ulterior motive, like on 9/11, they say all kinds of criminal files or perhaps gold holdings, stuff like that kind of vanished? Did
I
anything
have
like that happen?
I have not found out yet. I'm still really studying this case. But one thing that comes again and again is that they carry these things out on a Friday afternoon. And I would very much suggest that the reason why they do that is to control the stock market. As soon as this happens, boom, they close the stock market out of respect for the victims. And that gives them time to control all the insider trading that has been building up to when the attack happened. And then it gives them the whole weekend to block currencies and so on. And then Monday morning, when they open again, everything has been fixed, and people who had inside knowledge have made absolute billions. I'm not sure if this is what happened in Norway, but I could almost put my right hand out that if you really look into what happened on the stock market there, you would see the exact same thing. When the Swedish Prime Minister was shot dead, it was almost the all-time high on the Swedish stock market. I mean, people who knew made absolute billions. Same with 9/11, 7/7, Oslo bombings, you name it. It's the same pattern being repeated. Then,
go ahead.
No, I'll just continue with things, and you can see. Do you think this is a coincidence or what? Okay, so the local police that were there, unfortunately, they could not get their weapons or bulletproof vests and so on, because just a few weeks before this, everyone who were not doing daily duty had to give in all their personal equipment, bulletproof vests, weapons, and so on. And now, because the system that was arranged was that at least 2 officers needed to be there to open so that they could get hold of this. This meant that whatever police was there could not use their equipment. Also, there was a drill in Oslo going on that had very much a very similar topic as what actually happened, and it ended 22 minutes before the actual event. 22 minutes before the actual event. The night before, or soldiers or military people or whoever they were in unidentified black uniforms were circling in the area doing things that people are not really aware of. Also, just after the explosion, there was a TV team, a Norwegian TV team they came running towards the area because the TV station, one of the major ones, is very close by. And when they came, they were pushed back by 3 unidentified soldiers in uniforms that have not been identified either. These soldiers were with red berets and camouflage suits, and they had blue plastic gloves on, and they were pulling up like a white cable from the street level. Whatever that white cable was, I do not know, but we're talking like maybe 100 meters from the bomb blast, and it was only like maybe a minute or 2 afterwards. These soldiers are later seen helping with the so-called victims around the scene. As far as I know, never identified. There was one article that said that here they are, but you can very obviously see that it's not the same people at all. They don't even look alike. Also, there were 2 vehicles that these military people were using, 2 white vans that was parked on one of these streets, and one of them was parked right outside the High Court of Oslo, where you're not allowed to park normally. Anyway, so the special terror unit that was specially trained for these type of things were not alerted when this happened either. They said, very sorry, but for some reason it didn't work. And also, it is said that there was a relay in the phone system that made all the phone calls going to the wrong numbers. So this whole thing just was a total mess. And also the normal alarm system that is high-tech stopped working, so that to coordinate this whole rescue operation, unfortunately, people had to use faxes and mobile phones. That was the only way they could get hold of each other. Then it took 77 minutes for a national alert to go live, you know, and it took 2 hours and 36 minutes to shut. Yeah, for sure. Then it took 2 hours and 36 minutes before the border was closed down. I mean, we're talking Norway. It's a small country. It should just be shut down. Boom, boom, boom. Then you had the Home Guard and other military units that, as soon as they heard this happen, they went contacted the police and the authorities saying, we're here, what can we do? And they were being told, stand down, stand down. It took 6 hours before they were accepted to go into action.
So do you think that the bombing was to
If we go to the island, if it's okay, I would just like to keep going through these things, because it just shows you what actually was going on here. Now, when this man was walking around shooting on the island, it is only like 600 meters. It takes you about 1 minute exactly if you got a good, well-powered boat to get across, and that will be where a Delta team or special ops or something like that could go out and take him out, this guy. But on the island, according to the daughter of a police chief, she saw five people in police uniforms walking around, shooting, killing people out there. Other witnesses talk about 3 shooters, other talks about 2 shooters, and people on the mainland could hear that there were being shooting going on different areas on the island. I mean, it was very obvious that there was more than one person shooting. At the same time, it's only been blamed on one guy. And while he was walking around shooting, he was in contact with the police authorities on his mobile, giving reports. And in the end, he says, Commander Breivik, more or less mission accomplished, ready to surrender to Team Delta. You know. Then they say that unfortunately they didn't know if he was the real guy, because they couldn't call back on this number, because it seems like he called on a mobile without a SIM card. Okay. Anyway, so while he was shooting, there was a lot of kids there that had mobiles, and they were calling saying, please help us. Somebody's killing us here. And they called the 911 number, which is 112 in Norway. But then when the police, most of them couldn't get through. And when they finally got through, the police just said, I'm sorry, we don't trust you. We don't believe you. Call your parents and let them call us. So the kids, while being shot at, called their parents and were screaming out, please call them. And when the families then called, it was exactly the same. The police, no emotion whatsoever, just said, I'm sorry, we do what we can, but please don't bother us, that type of thing. We're busy with the thing that happened in Oslo. We need to focus on that one. Then the local police that was very close by, from a district called Nordre Buskerud. That is the district where it seems like this whole operation was carried out from. When the chief out there was jumping in the car and was going to go there, the battery didn't work. I mean, this is just the most important vehicle in that police unit. So he had to find jumper cables and so on to get the car working. Okay, so the police team, the helicopter team, they went straight into action. They jumped into the plane and said, we got sharpshooters, everything. Please just give us a go-ahead and we'll go to the island. We'll take the guy out. They were told to stand down. And were never used. Okay, also it said that the teams, these helicopter teams they were given 4 weeks of extra summer holiday, once again to save money. So they were all over the country and couldn't do anything. Then the first police officers that came to the area, they didn't even try to get over to the island. Instead, they were just sitting there waiting, and they were told, please just give us, send your observations of what is happening and so on. But no one was doing anything. And while this whole thing was happening, the chairman of the youth party, his name was Eskil Pedersen, he, I would say, very cowardly jumped on board on this ferry, this small little ferry. That was the only way to get to the island, except for private boats. And he just speeded ahead together with some other people, did not try and help any of the youngsters that was in the water trying to swim away from the island while being shot at. And instead of going towards where the ferry normally arrives, they aimed at another place and just rammed the ferry boat up on shore so that it couldn't be used. Then when the police came, they didn't go to the closest area. Instead, they were sent north to a totally different location. While this whole thing was happening then, and people were calling in, the police central was saying, don't worry, we're sending cars, boats, helicopters, everything. But nothing happened. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. The only helicopters that was there were 2 black helicopters that are being filmed circling the island. These have never been identified, and they are standard in Black Ops. Okay, so when the police finally got there, they didn't try to get a hold of a boat either. There was another police unit close by. They were there saying, please, we're here, let us help, let us help. They were told to stand down. And another police patrol was told, go to another city. So they drove by the island to a totally different place and was just said to stand there and wait. Then we have the special ops. And unfortunately, this day, they were using a system, a high-tech system that stopped working. It's called the Tetranet. Unfortunately, it didn't work this day. So that was a bit of a bummer. Then when the special ops, there were so-called Delta teams there. There were 5 of them this day, both in central Oslo, but also going towards the island. When they got there, the first team, they passed where the ferry was located normally by mistake. They went to a camping just north of that. There were boats there, but they didn't really have time to check out if there were any boats. So instead, they left the camping and they went 8.6 kilometers north, where they got hold of a rubber boat from the fire brigade. This rubber boat was so small. Even though it's so small, they put about 10 people in it with all the equipment, bulletproof vest and all heavy artillery, whatever, and went out. I mean, it looks like Monty Python. This has been filmed. They're standing up in this rubber boat, and they're so heavy that the rubber boat starts taking in water. Then the water goes into the engine, and the engine stops. So they're floating around there. It's only the special ops, highly trained Delta team of Norway. Okay, so while they're floating around after putting the rubber boat in not the closest distance, 600 meters, but 8.6 kilometers further north, they're heading towards the wrong island, even though they can hear the shooting from the other island. And anyway, so finally, there's a private boat that comes up to them floating around in the rubber boat saying, do you need help? Do you need help? Yeah. So they swap boats. The owner of the normal boat gets into the rubber boat, and the 10 in the SWAT team gets on board. Then it takes off full speed towards the island. No, it just goes towards the island. And please keep in mind, every minute people are getting slaughtered on the island. Every minute delayed, people are getting killed. So also, There were several helicopters that could have been used. I mean, it would have been easy to take him out from an aerial point of view. But these helicopters were landed on a big island not so far away, but not used. Then there was a press helicopter that was circling the island, taking some photos. And in one of the filmings, they managed, without knowing it, to film one guy in a police uniform that is shooting some of these kids. When you compare this guy, he is a southpaw, a left-handed person who's shooting like a left-handed person. The accused assassin is right-handed. This guy has a bald patch. The accused one does not. The uniform that he has on and that is put forward as evidence is not the same uniform as Breivik was having on when he was arrested. And also when Breivik was finally arrested, the photos taken of him, when you check the facial structure of the guy, they look similar, but I tell you, not the same person. Okay, so...
well, you're overwhelming us.
I can just go on and on.
It doesn't sound to me like your famous book, though. You call it coup d'etat in slow motion. It sounds a little faster here, because I don't see how this could have happened without the highest levels being behind the whole thing.
That's exactly what I'm pointing out. I'm just saying some of the surest signs of a black op is not what happens, but what does not happen. This was quoted from Fletcher Prouty, top CIA and Pentagon official. Uh-huh. So what are we looking at here? And
well, that's the question. I mean, from the beginning, it was obvious that this was an op, but the question was kind of like, you know, who benefits, who is trying to do what here. Do you think that it was against the political party? Was it against the foreign policy of the government, the financial policy of the government? What do you think?
I think when we look at these type of operations, the magnitude of an operation like this, it's more than one reason. There's several different ones. And I think that one of the things was that Norway was in the process of pulling out of NATO. They wanted, the population was fed up with Norway taking part of bombings in Afghanistan and in Libya and so on. And I believe that there was a fear that if Norway pulled out, then Denmark would have followed. And had these two countries left, who knows what would have happened. So after this attack, suddenly Norway was back in line. And after that, they were named honorary member of NATO. But surrounding this whole thing are also Bilderbergers. I'm sure in your program that you have presented and talked about the Bilderberg Group. Am I correct?
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah, they're a very important part of the whole game.
Yeah, exactly. And the Bilderberg Group, for those who don't know it, is like, I would say, part of a hidden world government. These are handpicked people from all Western countries in key positions in every single country, with the idea that if you can control a handful of people, but in the exact right key positions, then you can control that country more or less. And then you can, if you do that with all different countries, then you can direct the world you can pull the strings and direct the world in a direction that people would not be aware of what's going on. And surrounding many of these big operations are Bilderbergers. When we look at this one, we have the same pattern again. Now, in the morning, before this whole thing happened, the former Prime Minister of Norway, Gro Harlem Brundtland, who's also called the Mother of Norway, she's looked upon as an icon. She is an extreme Bilderberger, and she is also, together with a man called Maurice Strong, the architect and authors of Agenda 21. Agenda 21, I would strongly suggest people look into that one, because that is their plan, the New World Order's plan for the rest of us, and it's an awful, extremely scary future they have planned for us if they get away with it. But she's was part of that. She's done over the years incredible things, like signed over Norway's and they signed the entry into the European Union without Norway even having voted yet. She signed it before. I mean, these are the things that is called treason if you look at them. But anyway, she's looked upon as an icon. And in the morning before the mass shooting, before the bombs exploded and so on, also she was on the island. She came out on the island. She spoke to the young people and encouraged them and so on. And then just about an hour before the shooting started, more or less when the police was on his way in the other direction, she left the island. Then the guy, the Prime Minister, Jens Stoltenberg at that time, he's the guy who later afterwards went out and said, my God, we will not let the terror stop us. Norway is a small country, but we will unite and stand up for democracy. And so the same speech they always have to unite the nation, because an outer enemy attacking the nation is the best way to unite the nation. So they use this all the time. Anyway, Jens Stoltenberg, who's a Bilderberger, and his dad, Thorvald Stoltenberg, Bilderberger as well, they are very central in the background and in the foreground. And the Jens Stoltenberg was the former chairman of the Youth Party when he was younger. And now the new one, according to sources that I have in Norway, the current one is the illegitimate son of Jens Stoltenberg. So it's all in a family, like Jens Stoltenberg, Gro Harlem, and the guy who ran the ferry on shore. And also, because there is this almost, I would say, ritualistic thing when they do these mass killings. It is almost like a ritual, a very awful, dark thing that is carried out sometimes. And I would say this could possibly be such a thing, that she went over there, was with them just before they died, and so on. Then afterwards, Jens Stoltenberg, who became a hero for uniting the nation, even though everything just failed, he is said to, when the bombing took place in Oslo, that he was on location but somewhere unknown. It is said that he was in the government building, in the Prime Minister's house, but in the cellar, in a bomb-safe room down there. But just a few minutes after the bomb exploded, Norwegian TV got him on the phone line. This is like an hour and a half before the shooting starts on the island, so there's absolutely no reason to even mention the island.
Well, folks, we had a problem there, technical issues with Skype, and so now we're back. And Ole, you're there, right?
I am indeed.
Good. Okay, well, why don't we take the chance to move to a related topic, which is your trip to Norway, both to the island and then I guess to the conference and things like that. Take it from there, Ole.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to. I went to Oslo to do a talk called Political Assassinations and False Flag Operations, where I took many of these operations apart, showing the templates that are being used, the methods that are being used, and so on, and how they're being carried out in an attempt to dupe the population into welcoming more and more control, militarized police, giving up our freedom and our rights, and so on. And in the audience, there was a man called Hans Gaarder, a Norwegian journalist who is one of the absolute few that has actually done anything to, go into this this crime scene with a critical eye. And he's done tremendous work, and a lot of the things I'm talking about is based on his findings and so on. So after the talk, which was really appreciated, and yet again, there was absolutely no family members or anyone from this horrible tragedy that you could suspect that there would have been like distraught parents and so on that have been very distressed and wondering what was happening that day. Why wasn't it working? Could something else be behind it? But absolutely no one, as far as I know, of that kind was in the audience. But after that, I asked this journalist, Hans Gårder, if he could take me on a guided tour around the site where the bomb blasts were in central Oslo, and then the next day take me to the Utøya Island. That would be the day before the anniversary, the 4-year anniversary. So he did that, and we went around in the whole area where the government building and these other buildings were blown up. And it was such an eerie, strange feeling, because 4 years after it happened, these buildings are still there. They have not been renovated. They're like a monument over death and destruction. And the whole area is just quite spooky, I would say, because when you look at the damages that was done to these buildings, it does not match up at all with the official story that it was a fertilizer bomb placed in a van. And when you look at the pattern of the explosion, does not match up whatsoever. And one of the things that is very odd about the whole thing is that in central Oslo and in all the buildings, all the glasses, it was sucked out. So all the glass was on the outside of the building, in the streets. You can see there were like 2-3 meters of broken glass outside the windows instead of having them on the inside, which would be normal from a bomb blast. And also on the few surveillance cameras that have been released, there's so many of it that has been shut down and is what do you call it? Because of national security, we are not allowed to see them and so on. The same old story as always. But on the few that is available, you can see that on the buildings that are behind the government building that shouldn't really have been affected by the bomb blast, you can see there's like an explosion in one end of them, and then this explosion moves through the whole building, blowing it up in a circular motion. So very odd, to say the least. Anyway, the day after we went out to the island, and the island is beautiful. Like I said, it's a heart-shaped island in one of these beautiful fjords, absolute stunning area. And we went there, we went to a little camping site called Utvika, which is where most of the youngsters that survived were picked up and helped ashore by civilians. There was absolutely no police, no ambulances, no nothing there while this whole thing was going on for more than an hour. So we went in, and the whole intention was to go to the island, because I always wanted to be on location to get the feel for it, to also get the emotional connection with the whole place, so that I really can devote myself to revealing what happened. And so we missed the ferry where the ferry crosses. It's a very, very small little crossing. So we missed that on the way there, and we went to this camping site instead. And there we went into, there's a little like a cafeteria, tourist shop type of thing. And we approached the young woman there who was working there, asking her if she knew the timetable of the ferry. And she reacted a little bit odd, I thought, and she said, I don't think the ferry is going today because of the anniversary tomorrow and so on. So we said, okay. Then, since there was a sign outside the shop with motorboat for rent and canoes, we said, well, can we rent a motorboat? And she said, I'm sorry, but the guy who has the license is not here. Not that I understand why he needed to be there to rent out an ordinary boat. But so we said, okay, but then can we rent a canoe or two canoes. We were four people. There were two Norwegian friends I just met, and then the journalist and myself. And she said, okay, when? And I said, now would be a good time. So she took out a paper and I started filling it out, put my name and everything there. And while I was doing that, my friend had borrowed the bathroom, and he was walking through the cafeteria, and there was another girl there working in the kitchen. So he started asking her about the ferry, and she said, yeah, for sure. It's just like normal. It's where you, all the time, you can just go there. And she was very open, answering in a totally different way than the girl in the reception. So we said, okay, great, a bit confused, but great. So I went out and said, listen, we just heard that the ferry is working as normal, so why don't we do like this? We'll keep the paper I filled out, and we go there. If the ferry is not in action today, we'll just come back and we'll rent the canoes. Great. So off we went, and we went to the ferry crossing, which is about 500-600 meters from there. It's a small little parking spot, very small, gravel area. And there was this infamous ferry there, this small ferry that was involved in the shooting, and also that was stranded so that the police couldn't get across and so on. That one was there, but it had like a cable showing that it was not in order, or it wasn't working or something like that. And next to it, there was another boat. It looked like one of these tourist boats that goes up and down the canals in Copenhagen, Amsterdam, these type of things. That was there, and there were some people in it. And then otherwise than that, it was totally deserted. There was no one there except for two people from the Red Cross that was sitting under a little, like a mini tent type of thing, just sitting there. And when we looked over to the island, which is only like 600 meters across, there was a similar tent on that side. So I thought, okay, Red Cross on both sides. Anyway, so in the parking lot, I noticed there were most of the vehicles there were sort of official looking. There was an ambulance. There was two from what is called Norwegian Folk Health. There was a police van and some other vehicles there as well. So anyway, we went over to these Red Cross people and asked when the ferry was leaving, and they said, a bit avoiding, they said, well, the last one is leaving the island at 6:15. But I said, but I wasn't really asking when it's leaving the island. We're here on the mainland. We would like to cross. So when is the next one going? And she said, avoidingly once again, well, they're coming and going all the time. When she said that, I wasn't really sure which vessel she was talking about, because as far as I know, it's only that ferry, the one that was not in use that day. Anyway, so we decided we'll just wait. And I got my friend to take some photos of me in front of the ferry that I could use maybe for articles in the future and so on. And we were waiting maybe for 15 minutes, just standing there. We were the only people there. And then suddenly out of this wooden boat that was next to the little ferry, there were three people in wetsuits with headsets on that just suddenly ran across the bridge, jumped out of the big boat and into like one of these very fast rubber boats, so the ones that you stand up in and with double engines at the back. And these three just took off like full speed towards the island, which I thought that's perfect, because I took up my mobile, started filming them, because then I could time exactly how long it takes for an emergency rescue operation from the mainland to the island. And it was more or less exactly 1 minute to get there. Compare that to more than 1 hour of delay while the shooting was going on. Anyway, the rubber boat was out there, and we thought maybe somebody on the island had a heart attack or something, because they were very much in a hurry. Then we saw the rubber boat turn around, some people jumped in it, and full speed coming back towards us, not understanding that it had anything to do with us. Then when it came ashore or up and towards the bridge, two police officers jumped out and started running towards us. So I said to my friends, well, we're getting visitors. And they didn't think it had anything to do with us. They thought these police officers are just going to run, jump in the police car and take off because something has happened somewhere. But instead, these two came and stood right in front of us, one male, one female. The guy was early 30s, very well built, muscular, fit, military-looking guy, armed, which is something very new in Norway, that the police is armed. And he said, hello, we would like to see your ID. And since we're in Norway, not a police state, and on a public space, my friend, the Norwegian journalist, he just said, but why do we have to identify ourselves? Has anything happened, or are we suspected or anything? I mean, this is a public area. We're just waiting for the ferry. So the police officer got a bit strict with him. He said, listen, I'm not into games. Just show your ID. And he said, but why do we have to do that? And by then the police just said, you and I over there. So he wandered off with my friend. And at the same time, he said to his colleague, the woman, please check these three out. So the two of my friends identified themselves with Norwegian IDs. I had my passport in my pocket, but I felt I'm not going to make it easy for them. So I had a Spanish insurance card with my name on. So I just said, okay, here, my name. It's not a secret. I mean, I've just did a public talk in Oslo. So anyway, a few minutes passed, and then the male officer came back, got the info from the ID, our IDs, and then he took off and started talking his radio. Then 1 minute later, he came back, stood right in front of me and said, Ole Dammegard, there's a decision made by some police district, I'm not sure, but I think it was the police district called Nordre Buskerud, which is very central in the operation itself when the whole thing happened. The decision is that you are not welcome here today or tomorrow at the anniversary. You may choose to leave on your own, or you will be arrested. Neither Danish or Norwegian police have anything on you, but we are aware that you've given talks about your opinion about different assassinations being connected. It's fine to have an opinion, but it's not welcome here. So please, you have to leave. And I mean, sometimes in these situations, I get a bit scared. This time I felt totally cool, very balanced that day. So I kept looking in his eyes, not really answering. And because I think it's interesting to see the people who are protecting these type of things. So I said, okay, now you know our name. Now I just want to tell you that I think it would be a very good idea if maybe you educated yourself about what it is you're protecting here. Because if what I believe happened really happened, then you're protecting something very, very nasty, from people like myself. That it was like speaking to a wall that didn't get any reaction at all. But at the same time, my Norwegian friend, he said, please, do you mind giving us your name? And the police officer said, absolutely not. Then he said, but do you mind if I take a photo of us together? And he wanted to take like a selfie. And the police almost pushed him away and said, no, the only thing I can give you is my service number. And then he said, Delta 031. Now, that really made me take a step backwards, because Delta 031, the special forces that was involved in the operation, trying to go to the island officially to disarm the bad guy, but instead delayed it. These groups, there were 5 different Delta groups, and it was Delta 04, I think Delta 05, and so on. So Delta 031 could very well be part of Delta 03. So suddenly I was there standing, looking into the eyes of someone that I believe might have been involved in the operation itself, and was now there put to stop anyone from nosing around and getting too close to the area. So that I thought that was an interesting experience. And also for my Norwegian friend Hans Gårder, who spent years exposing these things, but have been heard of by very few. No one has really given him credit for this incredible research that he's done. He was free. He was totally free. They didn't even have his name in the computer, which he almost felt disappointed after. He said, maybe, no, but he said, maybe I didn't do my job properly or whatever, because they didn't even react to his name. Because in my opinion, he should have been the one that they wanted to, they're the least, that they just wanted out of the way, but instead it was put on me. So, well, what can I say? Anyway, after that, we left the ferry, but we didn't leave the area which we were told to. Instead, we went back to the camping, and because I really wanted to be there and feel the whole awful situation. I mean, we were right there, 4 years on the date, at the exact same time as this happened. The same weather, more or less, the same temperature in the water.
I've got a question. Did you get any feeling from this trip that it might have been, I don't know if you want to say more than just political, but could it have been kind of like a satanic ritual thing for the elite?
I think so, very much. I'm sorry to say that, but this is one thing that sometimes recurs when there are big killings going on. And it has a lot of the signs for one of these things. So I think so.
that's kind of the question, because some of these events are kind of elaborate, right? And could be done, maybe get the same effect with less effort, right? But they seem to pay a lot of attention to certain details, and you just have to wonder if they aren't. There's a book that goes into 9/11 that kind of argues that the whole thing was a satanic ritual. And go ahead.
No, I think it's more than one thing. I think, yes, it is a ritual, as at the same time so many other things involved as well. So
it was a prophet. It was all kinds of things to start the wars. Oh, sure. But what I'm trying to say is that within the event itself, various things happened, like on 9/11, where some Korean airline flight was redirected to, I forget, like Whitehorse, Canada, anyway, there were all these elements that had some connection to Aleister Crowley or his group, or they had some connection, and just the numbers themselves seemed to be important to satanic groups, whether 11 or 77 or whatever. And it's not my field, but I'm just saying that there is that element, and maybe this is also the case in Norway.
Do you know, when you look at the dates, when you look at the coordinates, when you look at the numbers, when you look at all of these things, very often they come up with the same numbers. I'm not very good with numerology, but it keeps repeating. And also the number of victims, is very odd, because it ended up at, well, I'm still not sure, but 77. And if you remember, it was 77 minutes after this whole thing. It was 77 is one of these words that keep repeating in different mass shootings and the bombings.
Well, I hate to reveal my ignorance, but my understanding, limited though it may be, is that 7 is the number of perfection, and that 11 is kind of the number that the dark side considers its team to be. And so 77 is kind of like the perfect number for the bad guy team, so to speak. And again, this is above my pay grade, but I'm just saying that certainly you see things like 7.
Well, I can say that these numbers keep repeating. Again, 9, 11, 7, 7, 2s and 1s and so on. They keep repeating 666, not the least. But it's very curious, because now the official number of dead people are 77. But for several days after this whole thing happened, the official number was 84. And then they recounted it and finally got it down to 77. And also
That's a very good point, because
That's a
I
major
remember
mistake, I would
watching that.
say.
I mean, being off by one or two, you can imagine, but this is like the biggest news story in Norway since World War II or something. I mean, this is a huge deal, right? How could you be off
I
by
would
more
think
than
so.
one or two?
In the beginning, they were off by 16 people, you know. And then it said that the reason for them making the wrong calculation was because the laptop where all the people on the island were registered, that laptop ended up in the water, and because of that, they made the wrong calculations. So it's just another one of these things that messes things up. But then they changed it to, instead of 84 victims, to 69 victims on the island. And two of the victims on the island, their parents were informed that their children had drowned, but then when they received the bodies, there were bullet holes in them, and so they made a big fuss about it. And then the pathology team said, "Oh, we're very sorry, we didn't notice them." I mean, just massive big bullet holes made by silver tip special op ammo. I mean, come on.
I got a question you kind of asked yourself there a minute ago. All of the families, all of these victims, isn't there any push by them, quasi-secretly or otherwise, to get a better version of what actually happened? Or do you think they're just being under so much pressure?
I tell you, this is a major question mark for me, because I would have thought that these families would have been standing screaming out big time because of all this delay, and then apathy from police and others. Instead, the Norwegian king, on the night it happened, especially thanked the police for their incredible work and how they had helped saving life and so on. But according to my Norwegian friend, the journalist, he says that this island was infamous for mind control experiments or mind control operations, and that the island was there preparing new generations of the Labour Party for different things. I can only say that when you hear family members and surviving teenagers from the island and so on, very few of them sound upset. They speak very cool about it. Yes, my friends were shot. I saw them fall over. I was hiding on the dead bodies. But we must see this is for democracy. We must stand up. There's no emotion when many of them are interviewed. And I find that odd, to say the least. So what is going on?
Well, I tell you what, the English saying, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, you know what I mean?
I totally know, but I don't want to pull the dots together without evidence. But in my world, there's something very spooky going on here, very odd. And I know that witnesses that came out and openly spoke about multiple shooters on the island, they have been leaving Norway since then. I don't know why, but more than one of these have chosen to leave the country. And as far as I know, they don't give any interviews, they don't comment on this thing at all, and so on.
Yeah, it just has that very creepy feeling to it. Actually, it did from the very beginning. And we might want to get into this supposed criminal a little bit, Breivik, because he and his story and his background, that all seems very dark, very sinister. What do you think? What do you want to?
It's always very difficult to know about these things because we are being served a version just like with Lee Harvey Oswald, and as far as I know, this whole the manifest that now everybody's looking into, that was published after he was captured by police on the island. So whoever released it on Facebook, how is that possible? But that is a sure stamp of a black op. This is how they do it. and also the way that it's done in English instead of Norwegian, and these type of things smells a long way. But for sure, when you look at the surrounding, the key people around this whole drama and so on, so many of them are high up Freemasons, including Breivik's own father. There's a very sinister network that keeps appearing in the background that I'm very determined to look more into, so that I can pull it apart and show what actually happened, because the official story for sure is a massive lie.
I got a question. You implied that the buildings that were damaged with the bombing were more or less left as they were. My image is that this was like in downtown Oslo or something. Was this like an area that's subject to being redeveloped and they don't have any offices there now? Or how could you leave, glass?
No, the glass, everything, the glass and all of that is gone. The streets are cleaned up, but the government building itself is like I don't know, maybe 30 story high building. I mean, massive. It's standing up like a big tower in central Oslo. And then the whole block around it, several blocks around it, are connected to the government, and all of these buildings are still standing exactly the way they were. The facades are blown away and so on. It's like, it looks really creepy. But what they've done is they printed on plastic, massive big plastic sheets. They printed like the way the facade should look like, with the windows and everything, and just pulled it right in front of it. So it's like I don't know, plastic sheets that are like I don't know how high, but like 120 meters times 80 meters wide, with printed windows on, and these are the things covering the facade. And then in the other buildings surrounding it, that you just see like with abandoned buildings, they've just put like wood, like boards in the windows and so on. But this is 4 years after. It's central Oslo, just like you say. Everybody's looking for apartments. Everybody wants to move there, and I couldn't find out where the government is actually working now, because they're not there. Or are they? Are they in behind? What is going on in these buildings that are seemingly not being used? At the same time, are they just standing there, or what is going on?
Ole, you're from Scandinavia originally, so you might have an idea on this, but I've heard people say that they thought that different Scandinavian countries were kind of like model test cases for the Western elite, call them the Bilderbergers or whatever, to kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, model social control in a sense. It's more than just social control. It's various absurd games with the mind, so to speak. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I mean, obviously, all countries get manipulated, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. They've been fairly culturally coherent countries, right? I mean, the population, the types of newspapers they would read, everything. It was a very controlled test case environment.
I think what you're saying is very, very, very interesting and spot on. Because Scandinavia has had this, they have, as far as I've experienced, a very good name in the rest of the world. People are looking up to these countries because freedom, democracy, they're wealthy countries, they're well off, they're liberated, they accept people escaping from political dictators, and so on. So these countries are being admired. At the same time, I would very much say exactly like you say. For instance, my body was born in Denmark, but I grew up in Sweden, and Denmark is super laid back. At the same time, people are so asleep, incredibly asleep, I would say. Sweden, exactly the same. It is unreal, the level of non-awareness that is going on there. People are so into renovating their kitchens kitchens and their bathrooms. Everybody's doing that at the moment, and totally not aware of what's going on. At the same time, also very afraid of conflicts. The Swedish population are famous for avoiding standing up against anything. And so like when a Swede is very, very upset, maybe he will put a sticker on the back of his car saying,
well, that's the revolution.
That would be it. So
a protest would be a sticker. A revolution would be a complaint.
Yeah.
Right. But
exactly.
And the interesting thing about that, of course, is that, I mean, it's leading to such massive problems like the immigration. And I read that, I guess that in Stockholm, essentially, they want to tear down a large part of the city and build up a new one to, house all the immigrants or something. It just seems.
No, but this is, you have to see this on a global scale. I just want to first go back to.
Oh, sure.
About the test run, because I truly believe that Sweden is being used as a test run when it comes to especially digital currency. Now you cannot use normal money anymore hardly in Sweden. Even the banks don't accept them, and bank safes are not what do you call them? These boxes,
safety deposit boxes. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, they're becoming illegal. So everybody's pulling everything out from the banks. Everything is digital. Even if you go down the local market to buy veggies, you need your credit card. So, and people say, but it's so handy, it's so convenient. Yes, it is. I agree. Until you understand that as long as you still have cash, if your credit card or chip or whatever it is does not work, you still have cash to pay with. Once that is gone, whoever controls your chip or your credit card can just turn you off. We will be totally without any possible way of getting an income or survival. At the same time, also being totally controlled by that. And Sweden was the first with, now in the passport is with chip. The passport is chipped. At the same time, they undermine these things as well. So if you go into a bank, for instance, in Sweden, with your passport, they say, no, sorry, a passport is not acceptable as an ID. I mean, come on. That is the ultimate ID. No, in a bank, you're not allowed to use that.
What are you supposed to use?
Then you need to get a digital ID that is controlled by them. They want to undermine the whole thing. Like here in Spain, for instance, we had what I consider like a good, normal type of identification system. You had a plastic card with your photo, your name, your date of birth, all of these things, your fingerprint on the back, small little that you could have in your wallet. Like if you need to be able to identify yourself, which is handy in a modern society, that type of thing would be good. But now, a few years ago, they changed that system into that everybody has to go give in their old good one, and instead we get like a printed green piece of paper where it's just somebody has written on an old typewriter your name, and that's more or less it. The name of your mother, the name of no photos, and it's big, it's A4, and you need to carry it around. And if you go into a bank or if you try to use it in any way or form, they say, no, sorry, it's not enough. You have to bring your passport. You need to bring something else. You need to. So do you see, they're creating a problem to get a reaction from us saying, but this is ridiculous. And then they come with a solution. And the solution in their plan in the long run is to microchip the population.
This has been people.
Yeah. This has been the plan for a long time.
Well, you're reminding me of why I don't really want to live in Europe these days.
It's a beautiful place, but my God, we're being hijacked, big time. So
yeah. Well, I tell you what, we're going to wrap it up before too long. So, any last few points you want to make about this case in Norway? Now would be a good time to go over.
I would very much like to say that my website is lightonconspiracies.com, lightonconspiracies.com. I devote my life to exposing the truth the way I see it. And I always try to go on location to meet up with people, to get the information on site and so on. Because I think that is the most valuable evidence you can get. Meet up with victims, witnesses, all of these things. But to be able to do that, and as well to feed my family, because I'm not being paid by anyone, I so need financial support. So if someone like what I'm doing, please sign up for my newsletter. There's donation buttons on my website. Buy my books. These type of things, which will make me able to continue this thing, because I think we are at a critical point of time in history where we really need to wake up, and we really need to expose these things, because if not, within a very near future, I think we're talking about months like that, we are screwed. We are being pushed into a very dark corner, and most of us are not even aware of what's going on. So I say, if you don't like what I'm doing, then use your money to support other researchers that you respect, to do the job, the ones that are willing to put themselves on the line and help us all. That would be my suggestion. Time Monk Radio as well. I'm sure you're doing this out of your own pocket and so on, to support these type of things, these type of platforms like alternative radio stations. Without them, I mean, there's no way we can get these things out, because main media is so controlled at this point that you will never hear about these things in other ways. So let's join up.
Yes, and by the way, you've got books. I mean, the coup d'état in slow motion. There,
I've got 4 different books.
Yeah, people need to look into these things. You've done really great work. Any last thing on the Norwegian case that you want to point out that people might want to look into, or anything? I
would very much like to say to family and friends of victims and so on that are afraid of talking about these but are eager to get the truth out there, please contact people like myself, people like Hans Gaarder at Nyhetsspeilet in Norway, and so on. Give us your info, and we will do everything we can to spread it out there. Because even though it might seem maybe what you know is insignificant in your eyes, it might be a very valuable piece for the puzzle, for the big picture. So anything like that, or whatever you experienced on the day of the explosion and so on, please contact us and let us know, and we'll do everything we can to get the truth revealed. Well,
that's very good. Very good. Well, Uli, thanks for coming. We do appreciate it. We'll call it a wrap for this time. And again, keep up the good work.
Can I mention one more thing before
I would go
say
for it.
Adios, amigo?
Yeah, sure.
I would very much like to say also that when it comes to these false flag operations, one of the main ingredients that is more or less always repeating is the drill. The drill is there so that they can get vehicles, explosives, extras, everything in position without normal people interfering. So the next time you hear about a drill, wherever you are, it will always be for your protection. But the next time you hear about it, it will be in the local newspaper, on local radio, or on the TV, or whatever, posters sometimes. Go there before it happens, while they're still setting the whole thing up, and bring your friends, family, whatever, cameras, and start filming them while they're still setting it up. Make it very, very obvious to them that they're being observed, that they're being filmed. There's also an app for your mobiles, I think it's called Bamboozle, that can make you stream directly up on YouTube while you're filming. And in this case, maybe it is a drill for your protection, maybe it is something with a more sinister agenda. If so, by making them aware of that, we see them before they even pull the string or pull the trigger, that might make us stop this madness. You know, instead of always being one step behind, be one step ahead for once. And I think just by doing this, I truly believe that that this advice has helped to stop at least 2 planned massacres. So please continue doing things like that and contact me. Please let me know anything you know about these things. You can find me on Facebook as well, Ole Dammegard. And like I said, anything I can do, whatever it takes, I'm right there. Wherever you want me to come, if you can make it possible financially, I'm right there. So let's help each other and
those are some
transcend
good
this
ideas.
obstacle.
Okay, that's it for this time. It's a wrap, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.